There's a type of woman who won't walk out of your life, but she'll never truly step into it either. She stays just close enough to keep your attention, but just distant enough to avoid anything real. And the most dangerous part? It doesn't feel wrong in the beginning. It feels confusing. It feels like potential. It feels like something that just needs a little more time. So you invest. You give your attention, your energy, your consistency, believing eventually it will turn into something solid. But slowly, something starts to feel off. You can't quite explain it, but you feel like you're the one holding everything together. Like if you stopped trying, everything would quietly fall apart. And that's when it hits you. You're not building something real. You're maintaining something uncertain. This isn't about heartbreak. This is about misdirection. Because when someone gives you just enough to keep you around, but never enough to make you feel secure, you don't walk away. You lean in. You try harder. You give more. You wait longer. And without realizing it, you get emotionally invested in something that was never fully there to begin with. So if any part of this feels familiar, pay attention. Because what feels confusing now might already be telling you the truth. This is where most people get caught. She says all the right things. I care about you. You matter to me. I'm here for you. And naturally, you want to believe that. So instead of watching what she does, you hold on to what she says. But here's the question that actually matters. When something is important to you, when you're stressed, overwhelmed, or trying to move forward in your life, does she show up with real effort? Not words, not promises, but presence? Or does she become distant, slow to respond, distracted, unavailable? Because the truth always reveals itself in that gap between what someone says and how they behave. You might start noticing patterns. You're the one initiating most conversations. You're the one making plans. You're the one keeping the connection alive. And yes, she responds, but she rarely invests. Over time, that imbalance starts to drain you. But instead of facing it directly, you explain it away. She's just busy. She has a lot going on. She's not expressive, so you give her the benefit of the doubt again and again. But here's the reality. When someone is genuinely interested in you, you don't have to constantly interpret their effort. You don't have to question where you stand every other day. Their actions may not be perfect, but they are consistent enough to feel real. What you're dealing with instead is measured effort, just enough attention to keep you engaged, but never enough to create clarity or stability. And this creates a cycle. You start giving more, hoping things will even out, but they don't, because she's already comfortable with the level of effort she's giving. At that point, something important shifts. You're no longer experiencing connection. You're chasing reassurance. You're trying to earn consistency from someone who hasn't chosen to give it. And that's where you have to be honest with yourself. If her words sound strong, but her actions feel weak, then the actions are telling you the truth. Words can be controlled. Body language is much harder to manage consistently. That's why if you really want clarity, you have to stop only listening to what she says and start noticing how she acts around you. Ask yourself something simple. When you're physically close to her, does it feel natural, or does it feel like you're the one creating the moment? Pay attention to the small details most people overlook. When you sit next to her, does she lean in, or does she subtly create space? When you hug her, does it feel warm and present, or distant and brief? When you look into her eyes, does she hold that connection, or does she break it the moment things feel real? These aren't big dramatic signals. They're quiet, but they're consistent, and that's what makes them important. You might notice something like this. She doesn't reject you outright. She doesn't pull away in an obvious way. But she also doesn't fully meet you either. It feels like you're initiating closeness. And she's simply allowing it, not engaging, not deepening it, just going along with it. And that creates a strange kind of confusion, because technically, nothing is wrong. But something still feels off. That feeling you can't explain, that's not overthinking, that's awareness. Here's the truth. When there's genuine attraction and emotional connection, closeness happens naturally. It doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't need to be managed. There's a natural pull, a sense of ease and comfort in being around each other. But when that connection isn't really there, everything feels slightly out of sync, a little distant, a little delayed, a little disconnected, and over time, that subtle misalignment becomes clear. Because real connection creates warmth, it creates presence. But when someone is emotionally detached, their body reflects it, even if their words try to say otherwise. So if her body consistently feels distant while her words sound close, pay attention to what you feel. Because that quiet disconnect is often the most honest signal you're getting. This is where things become harder to ignore. Up until now, everything could be explained away, misread, rationalized. But this sign, it reveals the structure of the connection. Ask yourself honestly, how present are you in her real life? Not in private moments, not in late night conversations, but in the parts of her life that actually matter. Have you met her friends? Do the important people around her know about you? Has she ever naturally included you in her world without you having to ask? Because when someone truly values you, they don't keep you separate. They bring you in, not forcefully, not all at once, but naturally, over time. You become part of their environment, their circle, their reality. But when that's not happening, you start to notice a pattern. You exist, but only in a certain space, a private space, a controlled space, and every time there's an opportunity for you to step into her real world, something blocks it. She's busy. It's not the right time. It's complicated. At first, those reasons sound valid, but over time, they become consistent. And consistency tells you more than any explanation ever could. Because while you're being kept in the background, everything else in her life is visible. Her outings, her social life, her experiences, all of it exists openly, except you. That's not privacy, that's selective inclusion. And it usually means one of two things. Either she hasn't fully chosen you, or she's intentionally keeping her options open. Neither situation puts you in a strong position. Here's the key point. When someone sees you as important, they don't hesitate to acknowledge you, not because they're obligated to, but because your presence adds value to their life. So if you're consistently being kept separate, you have to stop asking why and start recognizing what it means. You're not being integrated, you're being contained. And the longer you accept that role, the more normal it starts to feel. But a real connection doesn't keep you hidden. It brings you into the light without resistance. Real interest isn't passive. It doesn't just respond, it reaches. So take a moment and ask yourself something direct. When was the last time she initiated anything? Not responded, not replied, initiated, a message, a plan, a moment of closeness, even a simple check-in. If you have to think about it, that hesitation is your answer. Because when someone genuinely feels drawn to you, effort isn't something they calculate. It shows up naturally. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They don't need reminders. They want to connect, so they act on it. But in this situation, everything follows a pattern. You reach out, she responds, you make plans, she agrees, you create closeness, she allows it. And at first, that might feel like progress. But over time, something starts to shift inside you. You realize you're not experiencing mutual effort. You're maintaining the entire connection on your own. You become the one creating energy, creating direction, creating momentum. And she stays in a passive role, present but not proactive. That imbalance slowly drains you, because instead of feeling chosen, you feel responsible. Responsible for keeping things alive, responsible for making it work. And that's not how real connection operates. Here's the truth. When someone values you, they don't just accept your presence. They seek it. They find reasons to reach out. They create moments, not just respond to them. So if she never moves toward you on her own, if everything depends on your effort, then what you're experiencing isn't mutual desire, it's convenience. And convenience doesn't build anything lasting. This is where everything becomes clear. If you're willing to look at it honestly, think about the last time she talked about her future, not casually, but seriously, her goals, her plans, where she sees her life going. Now ask yourself one simple question. Where do you fit into that picture? Because this isn't about what she says to keep things comfortable in the moment. It's about what naturally comes out when she's talking about what truly matters to her. Listen closely to the language she uses. Is it always, I want, I plan, I'm focusing on myself. Or do you ever hear, we could, we should? We'll figure this out together. That shift from I to we tells you everything. When someone genuinely sees you as part of their life long term, they don't have to force that inclusion. It shows up naturally. You become part of the picture without needing to ask where you stand. But when that's not happening, you stay limited to the present. You become the person she spends time with, the one she turns to when she needs attention, comfort, or distraction. But when it comes to building something meaningful, you're not considered. And sometimes, to keep things from falling apart, she'll keep the future intentionally vague. Let's see where this goes. I don't want to rush anything. We'll figure it out later. It sounds open-ended, but it lacks direction. And lack of direction is rarely accidental, because clarity requires intention. And if she truly wanted you in her future, you wouldn't have to guess. You wouldn't have to decode her words or wait for the right moment to bring it up. It would already be there, in how she thinks, how she plans, and how she speaks. So if you consistently find yourself missing from that vision, don't ignore it. Because being present in someone's life today means very little if you're absent from where they're going tomorrow. None of these signs are loud on their own. That's why they're easy to overlook. There's no clear rejection, no dramatic ending, no single moment that forces you to walk away. Just small patterns, repeated over time. And before you realize it, you're emotionally invested in something that never fully existed the way you believed it did. But this isn't about blaming her. It's about seeing the situation clearly, without excuses, without overthinking, because partial interest isn't confusion. It's a choice. And once you understand that, everything starts to make sense. You stop chasing clarity from someone who benefits from keeping things unclear. You stop over-investing in something that isn't growing. And most importantly, you stop trying to earn a place that was never truly being offered. So here's the shift. Stop focusing on what she says. Stop focusing on what you hope this could become. Start focusing on what consistently happens. Look at the patterns. Look at the effort. Look at the reality in front of you. Because when someone truly values you, you won't feel confused about where you stand. There will be effort. There will be clarity. There will be mutual direction. And once you see that clearly, you won't feel the need to chase anything. You'll simply choose not to stay where you're not being genuinely chosen. If this made you think, good, because clarity isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary. So here's something simple I want you to do. Not for me, for yourself. Type done in the comments, not as engagement, but as a decision. A decision that you're no longer going to ignore what feels off. A decision that you're done accepting half effort, half interest, half commitment. Because the moment you acknowledge what you've been avoiding is the moment things start to change. And if you know someone who's stuck in this exact situation, send this video to them. Sometimes one clear perspective is all it takes to break a pattern that's been holding someone back for years. 9. Outrow. Shift to self-respect. 120 words. At the end of the day, this isn't about her. It's about you, your standards, your awareness, your willingness to walk away from what doesn't align. Because the moment you stop accepting inconsistency, you naturally start attracting clarity. And that's the real shift. Not chasing better, but refusing to settle for less. If you want more content like this, where you learn how to read behavior, not just words, make sure you subscribe. Because once you start seeing clearly, you don't go back.